I'm really grateful that all of you are out here. There is a myth that after we won marriage equality, first here in Illinois and then here in the United States, that the struggle for LGBT freedom was over. We knew it was a myth at the time, and yet everyone was saying, we won, we won, we won. My name is Andy Thayer. I'm with the Gay Liberation Network, and we've always seen ourselves as an LGBT organization, not just the gay. And we've always seen as one of our slogans as an attack on one of us is an attack on all of us. That applies not just to LGBTs. That goes for working class people whose union rights are being attacked. That goes for Arabs and Muslims who will be targeted by some of the same people that target us. Women who choose abortion, which is very much under attack these days. The other side never rests. After they lost on marriage, the first thing that they saw as their wedge issue coming out of that was the so-called bathroom issue. And some people, unfortunately, on our side try and trivialize this. And that's a huge, huge mistake, because they use it as an attack, not just on the right of trans people, intersex people to use the bathroom that they need to use, but also on all trans rights. We live in a country, of course, where trans people, their unemployment rate, their violence rates, all sorts of other indices of oppression are way off the charts.
Target has long had a policy which was only kind of recently brought to the fore, where if I go into Target and I need to use the restroom, it's acceptable and I am entitled to use the restroom that corresponds with my gender identity. The same thing is true if I go in there and want to try on a skirt or a dress or something in terms of using the changing room. And so they have long been a supportive commercial establishment in terms of the trans community. There is an organization which is not too large and may not be too well known that had issued a call to boycott and have demonstrations at Target stores across the country because of their trans inclusive and trans friendly policies about changing rooms and bathrooms. They were very circumspect about where they were going to be demonstrating. We chose this Target not because we have any issues with the Target store itself, but because we felt its location would make it a pretty prime, excuse the expression, target for these bigots and hate demonstrators. And so really at pretty much the last minute, within the last week, we pulled together folks for this demonstration we had today. If you've seen on the news, we've already had an instance where a woman who, after the event, said she was lesbian, but whose appearance was a little too masculine for somebody, got thrown out or pulled out of a restroom. And that's the kind of overflow that you're going to...
Let's get a transgender bathroom, and then they can go in out. Let the women have their own bathroom. Let the men have their own bathroom. And then let the transgender...
The only challenge with that is, of course, that you used to have your own bathroom because white people didn't want to be in the bathroom with you.
What about pedophiles? Do they have their own restroom? Well, let's put them in there with the kids. Let's put them in there with the children. Let's put the pedophiles in there with the children and respect how they think.
Unfortunately,
Okay.
that's another example of the kind of past
Yes, it is.
racism
Yes, it is.
and ridiculous attitudes. There have been more Republican politicians caught misbehaving in restrooms than anyone despite their gender identity.
Okay, they act like one. Okay.
Ma'am, I would suggest you get a hold of the former ACLU director who has left the ACLU. What you're saying is not acceptable. What you're saying belongs on the other side of this demonstration.
Because you're black.
It is your attitude and your misinformation.
You don't want to go there, do you? Do you want a black
There have been laws across this nation allowing free use of bathrooms.
In 1960, you would have been black.
Never
You would
been
have
a
had a
reported
separate
incident of
You don't want
someone
these children,
going
these
into
beautiful
the
people
bathroom.
to have a separate restroom,
That's
right?
just accept the truth. Let them
Same
their own
thing.
bathroom. And we all can get along.
Ma'am,
You don't have to be out here.
I'll take a trans bathroom the day after you take a black one.
We've made some progress here, obviously, that Target and some other major corporations have decided that hate isn't a saleable thing. But nonetheless, here we are, just north of Boys Town, and we have this anti-trans hate that we just witnessed here. Every time we take a few steps forward, we are taking a few steps back.
I'm a Christian, and there is nothing in any Bible I've ever read that says that we have to hate to show our love of God. Our faith doesn't teach us to hate people. It just isn't the right thing to do. What that person did right there is a perfect example of what we're fighting against. This idea that because we're transgender, that makes us pedophiles. The reality of pedophilia is that 82% of it happens in the home or through family members. And that's a reality that people, don't want to face up to because, daddy can't be doing it, mommy can't be doing it, your uncle can't be doing it. And that's the reality. It isn't somebody in a public bathroom. That's very, very, very rare if it does happen at all. So we need to step up and stop listening to the people that keep peddling that message.
We spoke today at the demonstration about this myth of trans people or someone pretending to be trans going into a bathroom to in some way do something illegal, looking over the cube or whatever it might be. I can tell you that we have had the right in a number of states for almost 17 years now across this country for a trans person to use the bathroom corresponds with the gender with which they identify, and we have never had a substantiated report of anyone doing that, going into the bathroom to commit any kind of a crime. The trans community is not just trans women like myself. It is also trans men, those who born female identify as male.
I am so thrilled that we are here today at this Target because the way that people make change a lot of times is not because the issue is right. It's not because it's fair. It's not because it's just, but it is financially lucrative. And I want to say something. The people who are targeting Target are the same ones who have called for boycotts of General Mills and their Cheerios commercial, who have called for boycotts of Disney. And how successful were they? Not at all.
If you are identified or someone thinks you are trans, you are 17 times more likely to suffer violence than someone who simply identifies as gay or lesbian. You are unbelievably multiple times to have difficulty getting a job and keeping a job and being promoted on the job. Again, if you are perceived or identified as trans as opposed to being lesbian or gay.
Discrimination, bigotry, and animosity toward those who are different is barely beneath the surface. You don't have to scratch too far to find that. But I'm going to tell y'all something, and we all know this. Here we stand, our heels dug in. We've come too far to go back, and we're going to continue to protect the gains we make and to move forward so that each and every one of us is treated fairly and equitably. And what are we going to do? We're going to run those bigots out of town.
LGBT civil rights and trans rights in particular have had different responses from different members of the community. Unfortunately, as the person whom I got in the interchange with today, it is members of minorities, in today's case African American, who seem to have some of the biggest pushback to LGBT rights. We recently had the head of an ACLU unit resign because of the bathroom issue, and she is an African American woman. So unfortunately, we've had that kind of bumping going on. And then to add more fuel to the fire, if you will, as Andy Thayer was mentioning, after the Supreme Court decision ensuring equal marriage rights across this country, for a lot of bigots and a lot of haters, the trans community seemed like a great target. There is much less known about the trans community. It can present an image which people it's easy for people to marginalize and to deal negatively with.
We are Americans, we are human beings, and we deserve the same basic fundamental rights as everyone else. That we have to have special laws for this is unfortunate, but it's the reality. That we have to protest to get those laws or to get the bathroom privileges is a reality. And my hat's off to the few corporations that have stood up for us and made it absolutely clear that we are just like everybody else in this country and deserve the same privileges and rights as our fellow Americans here. I did my entire transition in nearby Ravenswood. I started at the age of 47. It was several years before I had the courage to walk into the center on Halstead, come up to June Latrobe here, and she signed me up for the long list of paperwork to get my name legally changed. If I lived in another city, a small town, without this feeling of safety and community and without these wonderful institutions and people to help me, I'd still be David. And I wouldn't like that, I can tell you. So creating a safe place, a pro-LGBT place, is so important for many of us, especially when much of that outside world there is still very hostile.
In terms of HB 2, which is the North Carolina law, which was introduced and voted on and passed in a one-day session in North Carolina, the elements in it, some of those elements are found in other pieces of legislation in states like Tennessee, Mississippi, and even Georgia. And the basic issue is that the bill says that you, in terms of going to the bathroom, have to use a bathroom which corresponds to the gender found on your birth certificate. This, of course, is quite ludicrous for one reason. There are a number of states where one can never go back and make changes on their birth certificate, regardless of whether or not they've had sexual reassignment surgery. It's also ridiculous because there's no foundation for it. It is a solution to a problem that does not exist.
It is painful to know that regardless of where a law is, it's the attitude that matters. And in our social justice movements, we have got to strive to include everybody because it impacts everybody. It impacts women with disabilities who comprise 67% of all residents in nursing facilities against their will across the country. And I'm not talking about 84-year-olds outliving their 82-year-old counterparts. That's not male counterparts. That's what I'm talking about. I'm talking about people our age. 67% of nursing facility residents making $30 a month are women. We mentioned mental health clinics being shut down here in Chicago. Guess where that happened? Predominantly black and Latino neighborhoods, right? So this isn't just a women's issue. This isn't just a trans issue. This isn't just a disability issue or racial issue. This is a human rights issue. All of these, housing, employment, all of these things are a human, inalienable right